Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Way the World Works. And Merry Christmas. It is Christmas. It is the holiday season. And so we are going to talk about a related topic. And then I will tell you guys about a very exciting sale that we are doing with all the Tuttle Twins books and some of the online courses on the Tuttle Twins Academy. So let's jump right into it. Today, I want to talk about something that is, well, it's like a scary Christmas story that the German people used to tell their children. Maybe they do still tell their children to scare them into being good for the holiday season. And it's kind of like if you've ever played Super Mario Brothers, you have Mario and then you have like Wario, right? Wario, who's like the bad version of Mario. That's kind of what Krampus is his name is to Santa. And so it's like you have two very different types of, we'll call them leaders, rulers, government people for the type of this podcast, because I'm going to use them to teach an example and show you an example about ruling by fear and then just ruling, and then also incentives, how we respond to different kinds of leadership or politicians as people, as individuals. So let's get right into it. All right, so let's jump right in. So let's imagine, it's a really snowy night. You live in the mountains of Austria, which is next to Germany. And, you're a kid in a tiny village, and you're living hundreds of years ago, mind you. And you've been good most of the year, right? But you forgot to do your chores. And suddenly you hear a jingle, okay? But it's not Santa's bells. It's something deeper. A growl, maybe a stomp, a clatter of chains. It's Krampus. Who in the heck is Krampus? Well, Krampus is not real, but for centuries, kids in parts of Europe like Austria and Germany, they believed that, Kris Kringle, St. Nicholas, Santa Claus rewarded good children, but his creepy sidekick, Krampus, he punished the naughty ones. Now, in America, we have, the belief, I know some people say, like, if you're not good, Santa's going to check his list, and if you're not good, you're going to get coal in your stocking. And that's something parents say. Few people actually do it, although my grandpa, as legend has it, one year after the presents were already under the tree, his siblings, he was the baby of the family and he was a little bit bratty. His siblings got up and they took all his stuff out of his stocking and replaced it with coal and he had like a meltdown when he woke up. So we always laugh about that. So I guess sometimes it does happen, but that was by some vengeful siblings. But so it's kind of like their version of it. But kids are grown up to fear Krampus. It's like a scary part, which is very on brand for old school German culture. But today I want to take the story of Krampus and I want to use it for us to dive deeper into, should people do good because they're afraid or do good because it's the right thing to do, because the things that are considered good actually make logical sense and are, follow the golden rule, don't hurt people, don't take their stuff, which is, do unto others as you would have done unto you. And of course, we talk about that in the golden rule. So let's get right into it. I think I've said that like 3 times now, but we're going to really get right into it now, guys. So when I talked about Krampus and introduced him a minute ago, I said he had like rattling chains and like he stomped. And that's because Krampus is not like a man. He's like a furry creature with horns and rattling chains. And again, it's so on brand for like the harshness and the rule, the tough rule of like that part of Europe, Germany, Austria. So it's kind of funny to think about it. So he actually comes on December 5th. He doesn't come on Christmas. So I guess the kids were like, okay, if it's December 6th and he hasn't come, I guess I'm getting presents this year. His name is actually like, I'm going to try to say this. I'm going to read it. It's like Krampus Schnatz or something. I'm not going to try to say it. But in a lot of times when they had like Christmas parades, like the villagers would dress up and it was like silly, but it was also scary. And, all cultures have these things to scare kids. I know like the boogeyman, though I don't know that that's used to teach kids a lesson, but there's things, So Krampus was a tool. That story was a tool used to basically tell kids, be good or else. It wasn't even a matter of, naughty and nice list and you're going to get coal or if you don't do good throughout the year. This was like, you're going to be punished. And I'm not even sure what Krampus was going to do to the kids. And maybe he just scared them and ran away. Who knows? But let's talk about how this relates to justice, because I think there's a really interesting lesson here. So we have, in our constitutional system and in Locke's natural law, and a way to have a just government is that there should be a rule of law, which means clear, fair rules protect everybody equally, and that there's a ruler is not above the rule of law. It's a set of written rules, where in England they have when we talk about British constitutionalism or English constitutionalism, it's not like one piece of paper like us. It's like, it is a culmination of a lot of historical documents and British common law. So it's a lot of things. But either way, it is a rule of law. But then there's this rule of fear. And that means somebody uses their power to threaten and control people. And maybe, in a real government sense outside of the story, it's kind of arbitrary, right? It's whenever they feel like enforcing it. So under a rule of law, we know what to expect every day. We know that these are, we promise to not hurt people, don't take their stuff. That's pretty much it. Maybe on our small local community levels, there are other rules that ideally we all vote on and consent to, right? I know it doesn't always happen, but let's talk about in an ideal world. So this opposite, this rule by fear and this rule of arbitrary rule, really, that would be like, imagine your teacher or an adult would make up a new rule every day. And so you didn't know what to obey because things were always changing. Maybe one day it was no talking today, or you can't go to recess because I said so. I hate that last part, because I said so, because there's no logic to it. But as adults, we do say it. So give us some grace. But that would be unfair, right? Because that would be a rule of power and just abusing your power and not the rule of law. So let's contrast that with something else. Now, imagine if the class makes a rule together. We'll take turns speaking so everyone gets a chance to speak and there isn't chaos. That's fair because everyone knows the rule ahead of time, but also even better, you're all discussing it. You're all debating it. You're all having that conversation, which makes it even better. And here's the thing, those of us who are big supporters of the rule of law, I think there's the mentality to say, well, rule of fear doesn't work. And it does work, but we shouldn't strive towards that. The goal of a government or of a civil society should not be that we should all be so scared to break the rules that everyone behaves. It should be that the rules of our society are so fair and they make so much sense that, I don't want to be stolen from, so I'm not going to steal from you. That it incentivizes us through wanting the same action to happen to us as we are doing to others. We are incentivized. We want to do that thing. That is how you have, a society based on legitimate, on just rules. It's not this, you better do good or I'm going to come and scare you with this monster with chains and horns. I wonder what the chains are for, because I don't think he's chained up. I don't know. Either way, he's a scary creature, very scary. So good rules, they protect, they don't punish, they prevent harm, they make life peaceful, like we just talked about. Bad rules, fear, force, those are the words we don't like to hear. And, our entire foundation of this country was built on these just rules, on these rules of consent, on ruling in a way that didn't leave people so scared of breaking the rules, which, even though we got this concept from England, from Britain was not always doing that either. So obviously we learned our lessons the hard way, but we learned them. And I say we, meaning the people who came before us, but they also learned them because they knew what should ideally happen in Britain and was not happening. And they wanted to make sure that didn't happen here. So what makes a rule fair? I think ideally it's, again, like I said before, that we're all agreeing on something and that it makes sense. It actually serves a purpose. When we are making all sorts of laws, and I've talked about this before, that there was a book written and it talked about how the average person commits like 3 felonies a day. And it's not because they're openly going out and they're committing crime. It's that they don't even know what's a crime anymore because we have so many laws on our books. We can't keep track of them anymore, which is crazy. And then there's all these penalties. You can get a ticket. You can go to jail. There's all these things that exist in society to scare us to be good to one another. And we forget that there are, well, actually not even good to one another, to be good, obedient, citizens, when it should be about treating each other well and being nice to each other. And let's look at that on a really small level in your house or your community and your, with your family. We are nice to people or we help our neighbors because it does make us feel good, and that's fine too, but also because we know that in our communities, we take care of each other. One thing I loved about early, colonial America, and actually just early America in general after, is that people helped each other because they knew they had a moral, duty, responsibility. And they knew that because today it was their neighbor in need of help, but tomorrow it might be them. And when you all pull together as a community, when someone needed it, you knew to expect that in return. And so it was this reciprocal idea of service. And so it's, some people might say, well, that's a selfish reason. You should just do something nice because you want to help somebody. And that's also true. You feel great and it's good and everybody loves being helped. But there is also this understanding that we owe this to each other, that there's a duty that to live in a truly free society, we need to be able to do these things without being forced, without this government coercion. And you're probably thinking, Brittany, what does this have anything to do with the Krampus and the Santa Claus? But I'm using that as an example to show that this Krampus idea was this, terrifying creature meant to tell kids that you need to be good or else bad, scary things are going to happen to you. Where Santa's opposite. He's this voluntarily giving to you guys, right? It's like an opt-in. If you celebrate Christmas, you're opting in. So you're kind of consenting to the rules of Christmas, which are, be good throughout the year. He's got a naughty list, then he's got a nice list. And if you're generally a pretty good person, then you're going to have a good Christmas. You're going to get some presents, right? And usually, I know in most Santa lore and most stories, the naughty list is very, very short. That's what my mom used to tell me growing up, that the naughty list is actually very, very short, that most people try to be good. Most people are good. And it's exciting, right? When we're writing, I don't know what kids do today, but back in the day, we used to write our letters to Santa once a year and, say what we wanted. And then we kind of reflect on, okay, have we been pretty good this year? Have we served our siblings, helped our siblings, excuse me, helped our siblings when they needed help? Have we made sure that we're not, stealing things that aren't ours, that we're not lying? And everybody is going to mess up. We are humans. We are very, very flawed. And it's that trying your best. And that was exciting, right? We wanted to do good because we wanted to have a good Christmas. It was this positive incentive. It was an incentive to do good, not an incentive not to do bad, if that makes sense. And we weren't scared. I mean, the worst that would happen, according to legend, is that we'd get coal in our stocking again. I'm actually curious to know if anyone ever had that happen to them, because I only heard about it from my grandpa with his siblings playing a trick on him, and he did get all his presents again in the end, which I always thought was a funny story. So just a reminder of what makes a good law, what makes a just law. And again, I know Krampus and Santa aren't setting laws, but I'm using that just as an example that we can look at that's holiday themed to kind of zoom out and say, is our governments trying to rule by fear, or are they trying to abide by the rule of law? And one great book to pick up, if you guys don't have it already, is The Tuttle Twins Learn About the Law, which is based off the amazing economist, one of mine favorite. He's the French economist, Frédéric Bastiat, and he wrote a book also called The Law, which is great. It's really spicy. Like he opens it up there's one part in it where he calls the government miserable creatures. He says, "Oh, you miserable creatures, those who think you are so great." And I read that for the first time, I remember years and years ago. And I was like, yeah, he's giving it to him. He's telling it like it is. And that was really fun for me. All right, guys, we will wrap it up there. But before I let you go, I want to tell you about our amazing holiday sale. And this is really good news for anybody who forgot to take advantage of the Black Friday and the Cyber Monday sales, because great news, we are continuing those for the holiday sale. So we are offering the family starter pack that is $179. And guys, it's normally $641. Okay, so you're getting 72% off. This is a steal. You're going to get the 14 children's books that we talk about here on the show, workbooks, audiobooks, parent guides, and great news, it is free shipping. So that is a great deal. Again, amazing. You're not going to want to miss it. And then we also have the mega bundle deal, which is $275. And this is also going to be 75% off because it's usually $1,000. So this is another great deal that's going to get you everything you get in the family starter pack, but you're also going to get the Tuttle rebuttals. You're also going to get the 5 choose your own consequence, which parents, if you guys loved the Choose Your Own Adventure books when you were kids, like I did, those are great because they're just the Tuttle Twins, take on that. So it's going to have great, great messages on liberty and character building and all the good stuff we love here. So you're also going to get 7 guidebooks, the 2 American history books, which I've talked about on the show and that I've used for a lot of these episodes that are just so amazing. The history books you wish you had when you were kids. You're also going to get the curriculum, audiobooks, videos, ebooks, and again, qualified qualifies for free shipping, but please hurry up because you want to place those orders before December 15th or they're not going to get to you in time for Christmas. So that is the last day to get them here on time. And as promised, we are also still extending our Cyber Monday sale. And this one is so exciting, you guys. So you are going to get discounted access to the Tuttle Twins Academy. And this is great, you guys, because let's be honest. Kids are on screens. They're going to be on screen. So why don't we turn that screen time into an educational opportunity, not just for teens and kids, but for the entire family? Tuttle Twins Academy is going to get you great lessons where you're going to learn about character building and American history and all the great things we talk about on this show, but in more detail. So if you want to sign up for a lifetime membership, that's going to be available for $449. It is usually $559. So this is 20% off. This is huge. This is amazing. Or if you want to go for an annual, you don't want to do the lifetime, that's going to be $249 instead of $299, which it usually is. So that's 17% off. And guys, my brother homeschools all 4 of his kids, and they swear by these. They use these to supplement their lessons that they're teaching their kids. So this is a great deal. How do you get all these deals? Well, you are going to go to www.tuttletwins.com/sale. Super easy. If you're watching the video version of this podcast, which you should be, by the way, we will put that down at the bottom. But again, let me repeat that. So that is www.tuttletwins.com/sale. All right, we will wrap it up there. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. And until next time, I will talk to you later.